I'm Medha Parlikar. I'm one of the lead project managers on the RCON cooperative blockchain project. I work with a team of developers building out the core platform, and that includes Rolang, the consensus protocol, the R node, and all the pieces that encompass that. Oh wow, blockchain found me. I came into this role with about 20 years of traditional internet technology, if you want to call it, software as a service technology. I've been working with that kind of technology since 1999, since the very early days of the internet. And I have a good friend of mine that runs Pyrofex, Nash Foster, and he approached me regarding this project because he knows that I know how to drive teams to ship. So he's like, I have a project for you, Medha. Are you interested in joining the project? So I was extremely intrigued about blockchain technology because I'm a libertarian at heart. So I believe in power to the people and decentralization, and that brings, and I also believe that technology brings about a brighter, better future. It can be a very bumpy ride getting there, but in the end, I think the consumer wins. Everybody wins, right? And it transforms society and it transforms the way people live in a very positive way after it goes through its initial growth period and adoption, right? And once it becomes more generally adopted, I think there's a tremendous benefit to be had. The internet alone has enabled, something as simple as people be able to work from home. And that has improved their quality of life, right? It has enabled things like, businesses like Amazon to flourish, wherein people can drop ship groceries to their door, right? So it has a very tangible effect on how people live their lives. And I think blockchain is going to even brighten that even more, right? It's going to be another evolution, another step in the right direction. I think what I love about the vision for RCON is that there is a humble emphasis on the need to have trust in the code. I think that's probably the most important thing, is that our goal is to enable contract authors to build contracts that are correct by construction, right? And no developer wants to have bugs in their code, right? And it's terrible when you think of, the parity wallet bug is a terrible thing, right? All of that money gets locked up, and you can't build the world's financial models on top of a system that is prone to bugs. People will not have confidence in it. And so I think really addressing that problem, and it's not something you can layer on, right? You need to build it from the ground up, which is why we're building a brand new programming language that is correct by construction. And we're building the technology and the platform all the way through to support correct by construction contracts. It's extremely important. With the Venus release, our intention is to not just have a static type checker, but also behavioral types. So you'll be able to know, based on what behavioral type a contract is, in fact, the contract is doing what it says it's going to do. And that's very, very important if you are, processing the sale of your home on the blockchain, right? Which is the future and vision that we see for the blockchain. So for me, the most important promise that RCON delivers on is the trust and faith in these contracts that will run very critical financial operations on the blockchain. So it's interesting, I came into this project uniquely qualified to handle it because I have been managing large, diverse development teams for many, many years. In the last several companies, I've managed globally dispersed teams of about 30 to 50 individuals. So it's not been a huge adjustment for me. I would say for me, ramping up on the technology has really been a challenge because it's hard to, when I joined the project, it was like hit the ground running at 100 miles an hour. I immediately needed to understand the scope of the project, needed to understand the technology, and we were hiring developers. So it was very, very rapid pace where I was having these developers on board under the project, and they immediately needed to, one, understand the technology, have an onboarding plan, and then immediately have specified work that they could start working on. So that was really the challenge for me. Managing the remote team was fairly straightforward because I have a deep experience stack with that. So that was good. For me, it was really about learning about the technology. That was my real challenge on this project. It was great to kind of ramp up and learn a lot about blockchain, and more specifically how RCON improves upon Ethereum. So I'd say my best moment was, when I started running the node locally and actually seeing the blockchain appear on my node and us connecting a peer-to-peer network during our testing sessions. That was definitely a highlight. Launching the testnet today was definitely a highlight, and seeing 35 validators in the first couple of rows signing the Genesis block and the network kind of booting up. That was definitely a highlight. In terms of low points, I would have to say that I haven't really had any low points in the project per se. There have definitely been a lot of challenges. The timeline is extremely aggressive. It still is extremely aggressive, even though we're moving to Q1 in terms of a mainnet launch, because we have a large block of features we need to get done, and the project, it's very complex, and the performance requirements are really, really high. And so the team has got a lot of work ahead of them to make sure they've got, right? It's one thing to build features. It's another thing to build features that are stable and fast, right? The two are very different. And so now that we have features, we have to start looking at how are they performing, how stable are they, what kind of optimizations can we find? And it's not just one thing. Optimizations, there are many, many, many things you need to look at. And they're all tiny little features, right? If I'm looking at optimizing and how we're passing blocks around the network, that's a feature, right? And it's not necessarily one that's easily testable. So a lot of challenges still in the project with respects to timeline and delivering on our promises, right? That's, and in terms of high points, I think, launching the testnet today was a wonderful high point, and they're a terrific development team, so I've really enjoyed working with them. They're very professional and extremely high caliber. It's a blessing. I would say around the 6-month point after mainnet, I would say that I would see a few dApps now deployed on RChain. I think adoption of any new software, of any new technology is relatively slow. It follows, a very slow curve up, which I think is good. I think a lot of dApp developers are going to see how the platform performs. They may run a very small smart contract, get a feel for how the project is progressing, right? We're not going to see any heavy hitters in the project, I think, until after Venus, which is really going to be 18 to 24 months after Mercury. And the main reason is you're going to want the static type checker, you're going to want the behavioral type checker in place, where you're really going to start having confidence in those contracts that you're deploying on the chain. So really, I see a slow ramp up of RChain, right, over the next 12 months post mainnet. And then I see a bigger and more broader adoption happening around the Venus timeframe. Well, if you want, we would love to have more contributors on the RChain platform. That goes without saying. We look for people that are entrepreneurs, developers that are entrepreneurs. And that's the way I like to look at it. If you're a developer that can read documentation, ramp up on your own, and are willing to, find a problem, pick it up, and solve it, then we're looking for someone like you, right? People call them self-starters, but I don't think self-starter is the right word, really, because a self-starter is just someone that, they're not necessarily entrepreneur at heart, in that they're not going to go and learn about a space, identify an opportunity, and then exploit it, right? And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to build on top of RChain, right? So you can talk about core platform developers as one facet, but then there's development tools, there's something equivalent of the Web3 interface, there's validator software that actually develops all the logic around how frequently deploys and propose happen. So there's a lot of opportunity beyond just dApps to even build tools that leverage the RChain platform, right, and supported applications that are kind of attached to the platform itself.